In this video, I'm going to go through 4 simple hacks that I've used personally and with clients to break through any fat loss plateau. But the first thing we want to establish is if you're even in a plateau in the first place. We know that fat loss is not a linear process. Even when you're turning up, you're being consistent, you're doing what you should be doing throughout the course of the week. That does not mean that we are going to always see results. We cannot expect the number on the scale to always go down. And there can be so many different reasons for that, from water retention, digestion, hormones, inflammation, and that is completely normal, seeing those scale fluctuations. One thing that I talk to my clients a lot about is the ability to be able to delay gratitude. And by that I mean that when you've got a fat loss goal, those that can continue to show up, keep putting in the work, even when they feel like it's not working and that everything they're doing isn't leading to the end result, those are the people that will be the most successful. So sometimes you are not actually in a plateau, you just need to keep on pushing and you will get there in the end. On the flip side, sometimes you also just need to be realistic about the rate of progress you'll see and how quickly you can expect the number on the scales to go down. If you were to lose 1 pound every week for 50 weeks of the year, that would work out at 50 pounds or just over 3.5 stone. And I think for most people, if you could be presented with the ability to lose 3.5 stone over a year, you would be pretty happy with that. But in our mind, we feel like it's realistic that we're going to lose 3 or 4 pounds every single week, but that is just not a rate of loss that's sustainable. So before you're thinking, sometimes even if you're in a plateau, you just need to ask yourself, am I seeing that number come down each week? And do you just need to be more realistic with your expectations and how fast you expect this process to go? But anyway, let's assume that you have been showing up, it's been a few weeks, maybe a month, and you haven't seen any progress on the scales. I'm going to go through these 4 hacks with you now to get things moving so you can start going in the right direction again. And the first one I want to talk about is accuracy. And this is incredibly important. In my experience, and this was certainly the case for myself as well, a lot of people have no idea how many calories they're actually consuming over the course of a typical day. And when you've got a goal that's centered around fat loss, weight loss, seeing physical changes, this is extremely important. And if you're just guessing around your consumption, it is so easy to get it wrong. There are a lot of studies out there that suggest that people wildly underestimate the actual amount of calories that they're consuming, and so many options these days, food choices are so calorie dense that if you're only 10% off, that could easily equate to 300-400 calories a day. And then when you times that across the entire week, those things can really add up. And another mistake that I made when I was first starting to go through, or wanting to go through, my first fat loss transformation was thinking that just eating healthy food choices was enough to get me over the line. And perhaps you've got to that point where you change some of the things you were eating, you cut out some foods, some processed foods, maybe you stopped eating as much fast food, and you initially saw some changes on the scale, but now that's slowed down. Well, unfortunately, when we've got a goal that is centered around fat loss and weight loss, the amount of food that we're consuming, or calories I should say, is so important. And it doesn't matter if you're eating healthy food, because if your volume of that healthy food is just too much and it takes you over or puts you at calorie maintenance, then you will not lose weight. And that is just science, that is a fact, you cannot change that. So ensuring that you're being accurate with your calorie consumption is incredibly important. And the way that I would recommend doing that is by tracking your calories. And what that will do is it will help give you a level of awareness around how your food choices are impacting you from not just a calorie perspective, but also a macronutrient perspective. So proteins, carbs, and fats. And that's not there to shame you or to make you feel bad, but it's to give you that awareness around how those different choices impact you and put you in a position where you can make the best decisions every single day that are aligned with your goals. Hack number 2, and this is incredibly important and makes such a massive difference when you've got a fat loss goal, is movement. So many people are very, very sedentary throughout the course of the day and just don't move, the average step count in the UK is something ridiculously low. It's like 3,000 steps. And when you've got a goal of seeing the number on the scales come down, then that is just not going to be enough. You need to be aiming to be moving as much as possible. Steps is a really, really powerful tool that you can use to ensure that you're burning more calories every single day. And if you've got to that point where the number on the scales isn't moving, then what we can do is try to increase the amount of calories that we're burning to put you back in that deficit. And the way that we can do that is by ensuring that you're moving more. So if you are currently doing 8,000 steps as an average, perhaps you want to bump that up to 10,000, or if you're doing 10, you want to go to 12. But looking at it as an average is really important as well. So if you've got a day where you're particularly busy, then you could do slightly less steps but make up for it on a day where you're a little bit quieter. But by increasing that movement, it's going to really, really help get things going again. And what I would certainly look at recommending doing, if you find that a bit overwhelming with increasing your steps, is to look at spreading them out evenly throughout the course of the day. The worst thing you can do is get to 6-7 p.m. and realize that you've got to do another 8,000 steps, because that's just not going to be realistic for the amount of time that that's going to take. But if you can do half an hour in the morning, 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there, 20 minutes there, that's going to make it so much easier and put you in a position where you're not getting to the end of the day and feeling like you've got to catch up. Now, for a lot of my clients, something that I do actually recommend is potentially considering something like a walking pad that you can use when you're working from home. You can do it when you're watching TV, if you're looking after the kids, and it's an easy way to get in 1,500, 2,000, 3,000 steps without even having to leave your house at all. So that's something that you might want to consider. And another option, if you do struggle with time, is to also look at maybe to add in cardio. Now, from the perspective of bang for our buck in terms of the amount of calories we're going to burn per minute or per hour, by using something like cardio, if we are really, really short on time, we can make up for that. So as an example, the amount of time that it might take to burn 100 calories by walking is going to be a lot shorter than it would be by 100 calories on a Stairmaster or on a rowing machine. So adding cardio can also be a really, really good way to increase your movement, to ensure you're burning more calories and get you back in that deficit through the plateau and seeing the number on the scales move again. Hack number 3 is all about sustainability. In my experience, when a lot of people see plateaus on the scales, it's because the diet that they're following, or trying to follow, I should say, is simply not realistic, and they'll go through spells of being on it with their diet only to fall off track. And that constant yo-yoing with being consistent and then not ensures that you're never able to actually be in a calorie deficit for a long enough period of time to see the results that you want. So what I would much rather that you did was, rather than going for this extremely restrictive diet that you feel is going to get you results quicker and get you to that end goal faster, is to take an approach that actually works. Because in my experience, when it comes to fat loss, fast does not last. And whilst you might see the number initially come down, all that's going to happen is when you go back to a more realistic way of eating, the scale comes back up. So what I want you to do instead is to look at the meals that you're eating currently, the meals that you know that work within your lifestyle, they work with your schedule, your commitments, you like them, you enjoy them, and ask yourself how you can amend those meals, whether it's portion sizes, whether it's making some sensible replacements, ensuring that you've got a good quality source of protein in each meal, but adapt these meals, make it so it's a more realistic and easy and enjoyable plan for you to stick to, and understand that whilst it might take a little bit longer, if it actually gets you to your end goal, that is going to be a far more effective approach than going for an incredibly restrictive diet that you just cannot stick to for longer than 2 to 4 weeks. And finally, hack number 4, and a super important one, is consistency, especially on the weekends. Something that I was so guilty of over the years was trying to eat well Monday to Friday, and then it would get to the weekend and I'd say, right, this is my time to relax. I don't need to keep pushing myself here. I'm going to let my hair down, have some snacks, maybe have a few drinks, alcohol wise, whatever it might be. But the problem with that approach is weekends account for nearly 30% of the whole year, which is a lot more than people think. So if you look at your week as a whole and start thinking that for 30% of the week you are not consistent, you are not hitting your targets, you can begin to imagine that that is going to have a massive impact on potentially slowing things down. So if you're not seeing results, you've got to a point where after a little while the scale's not moving, you're not seeing physical changes, but for 30% of your week you're not actually focused, you're not tracking your food, you're not going to the gym, you're not doing your steps, whatever it is that you're skipping out on, that is going to make a huge impact on your ability to see results. So start looking at this as a 7-day game. It is not just something that you can do Monday to Friday or during the working week. Being on it over the weekends and sticking to your diet and your exercise routine 7 days a week and appreciating that you're playing the long game here will make such a massive difference. And often just by starting to dial in the weekend slightly, you can start to see considerable results a lot faster because of the amount of the week, that percentage that we talked about, that you're not being on it at the moment. And remember, like I said at the start of this video, fat loss and weight loss, it doesn't happen every single week. There are so many points on my journey where I know I'm showing up, I know I'm doing the right things, I know I'm being consistent, and that number on the scale just isn't budging. But over the years, with experience, I've learned that if I keep going, if I keep pushing, if I keep doing the right things, I will get there in the end. And sometimes it just takes that consistency and time, and then I'll see a big jump down on the scale. So a plateau is not a plateau if it's only been 7 days. Sometimes if it's not even been 14 days, the questions you have to ask yourself are you being consistent with your food Monday to Sunday? Are you actually moving enough? Do you need to increase your movement? Is your diet realistic? Is it something that you can actually stick with over time? And are you playing the long game when it comes to your results, as opposed to trying to rush things, only sticking with it Monday to Friday and creating a plan that was never going to work for you? If after watching this you feel like you would benefit from some help on a one-to-one level as to how to create that plan which is specifically tailored to you and your individual circumstances to see life-changing results, head to the description and click on the link for my one-to-one coaching application. I would love to hear from you, and I will come back to you straight away with more information and to see if I can help.